Hi everybody, and I thought that my introduction was a good place to end because where I want to start is the fact that I spent 7 years in university working and wondering about bridges. And okay, 7 years, I can quite understand that quite a few of you might believe that it may be slightly excessive to get a degree. But in those 7 years, I managed to get 2.5 degrees, and the interesting part about it is that the university that I went to, had a pond or a jheel in the middle. And on one side of it was the arts and science faculties, and the other side was the engineering faculty. So for the first 3 years of my life, I did a graduation and an undergraduate in mathematics on one side of the river, the jheel, and then after that, a year of MSc. And after that, engineering prevailed, and I did a degree in Masters in Computer Applications after that. The interesting part was that that jheel was regarded almost as the difference between being somebody who's looking for a job, a proper engineering degree, and somebody into the pure arts and the pure sciences. And it was a really difficult thing because, you'd say that the guys across the river, all they're bothered about is group discussions. And, here we are talking about literature, history, science, math, changing the world. And there, all they're bothered about is, what's their placement this year. And when I made those first, steps across the river, across the pond, across the bridge, and went across, I found out it wasn't the case. And they found out that we weren't exactly these guys with our heads in the clouds all the time. And of course, I ended up spending a lot of time on this side of the jheel and this side of the bridge as well. But I can only tell you that my final 3 years in college were far richer because of the fact that I managed to have a bridge in between these two very different cultures. So what I'm going to talk to you today is about bridges everywhere and a few boundaries that I've come across in my life, and how we've sort of got through to them and overcame them together. So first, let me talk about the bridges. I mean, the simplest thing that I can talk about is something that I was really, really involved for the longest time in my life, and that is quizzing. I still write a column in it. So what is quizzing? What gives us a kick? I mean, why would you want to know something? And the truth is, most of us misinterpret quizzing. We think it's basically a search for knowledge. You turn around and you say that, what is quizzing all about? It's like knowing capitals and currencies. And the truth is, quizzing is nothing like that. Quizzing is basically making connections, little neuron connections, neuron to neuron, one little synapse. Is it an electrical synapse or a chemical synapse, which moves from one place to the other? So what the beauty of quizzing is that it transcends these boundaries of silos that we put out in subjects. Here's history, here's geography, here's mathematics, here's economics. No. Quizzing makes you think linearly, take other directions, sometimes completely go around, and find ways to reach from one place to the other without a problem. And that's the beauty of it. So what I'm going to do is first illustrate to you what quizzing is with a couple of questions. So in the 80s, I came across this amazing question. The first time I heard it, I just loved it. And somebody came and asked me that, can you name one Prime Minister of India, of independent India, who became Prime Minister before celebrating his 21st birthday? And I said, hold on, that's impossible. How can somebody be Prime Minister? I know all the Prime Ministers of independent India. How can somebody be Prime Minister of independent India before celebrating his 21st birthday? And he thought about it and then said, is he a Prime Minister of Kashmir? But then, Kashmir is not India. And he can't be the Prime Minister of another state. I don't know anyone that young. Even Rajiv Gandhi was 40 years old when he became Prime Minister. And then you go back and you say, wait a minute, what did the question say? The question actually says the Prime Minister of India before celebrating his 21st birthday. Ergo, he's a man who doesn't have too many birthdays. Ergo, he was born on the 29th of February. So Morarji Desai, who was the Prime Minister of India at the ripe old age, in 1977 he would have been 81 years old because he was born in 1896, had actually celebrated just 20 birthdays before that. And that is the fun of quizzing. It's not about knowing that by heart. If you just knew Morarji Desai's birthday, that wouldn't be fun. But the fun of it is that little synapse in your brain saying, hey, this guy's born on a leap year. He's born on 29th February on a leap year, and that's how it works. So whenever you do quizzing, it's all about bridging these little gaps. So another really exciting example, interesting example is, there was a lady called Veronica Lake, who was one of the top actresses in America in the 40s. And the question came to us that, why did Veronica Lake wear short hair in the 40s? She was famous for her picadoo hairstyle and she changed it during the 40s. And you think, okay, why would a film actress change hairstyles is something that, has no connection with anything else. Why would I be expected to know? And then you'd say, wait a minute. They're saying the 40s. The 40s must be relevant for some reason or the other. And you think about it, and you think a little more, and then you think about it, and you said, that's during the war. Why would I want an actress to have short hair during the war? And the reason is, most of the men were off to the war. So the American factories were being manned mostly by women who had taken over the workforce. Now, anyone working in the factory will tell you that long hair is a really dangerous thing in a factory, especially the factories of the 40s and 50s and non-automated factories. All those equipment around the place, it's a really dangerous thing. So what the American government did was some smart man went and said, how are hairstyles followed? They follow their stars. So let's go to the actresses and tell them to have short hair during this time, and the fashion will follow. And they actually did that, and apparently lots of casualties and reviews just thanks to Veronica Lake and her like changing hairstyles during the Second World War. So that is the kind of bridge that a quiz does. It goes from a war effort to Hollywood, to somewhere else. And those are the kind of bridges that is so exciting today, because today it's no longer about information. All of you have all the information that you want, because it's all sitting out there. Google does that for you. But the ability to make those connections, those bridges, is what will make you different. The ability to be able to connect two facts together, to connect three facts together, to reach places that you haven't done before, to go across to subjects, make that mighty leap to places that you haven't gone before, that will make the difference. So I thought I'll just ask one more question for you, because it's something that is of interest. How do you actually work out a question? And I'll try and take you through one more when we go. Here it is. Stephen Marks started his retail business in Britain in 1969. However, it really caught the public eye in 1991 when someone in the marketing department called Trevor Beatty noticed something on a series of cables between the Hong Kong and London offices and coined the brand name for their next clothing product. Name the global brand he started. Now, if you look at this question, the first thing you will say is, okay, retail, global brand, possibly it's got to be something we all know, otherwise you wouldn't ask the question. So you say, okay, some global brand, maybe a clothes brand in Britain. But hold on, then why would we ask this question? There must be something. Why would I mention telegrams and cables? And then you know that what happens is whenever you have cables, they always used to have in those days, the initials of where they're coming from. So the cables that used to come from Hong Kong used to be called HK. So the cables that were basically sent from the London offices were called UK. And one smart man sat there and saw a label. The company's name was French Connection. And he says, FC UK? Wow, that's an interesting name for a brand. And that's how FC UK became a global brand, because somebody saw a telegram between a cable between the Hong Kong office and the London office. So that is the essence of how knowledge makes these mighty bridges, the mighty jumps from here to there. And today, if you want to be relevant, you've got to be prepared to make those jumps, make those bridges, and go where you've never gone before. And quizzing is the epitome of that, taking your mind to places it hasn't been before, taking your mind to make those efforts that you haven't done before. So that's one part of building bridges. And from here on, I'll come to the second part of building bridges, which is my career in sport. And one of the biggest challenges I had was I worked for a IPL team called the Kolkata Knight Riders. And you walk in, players meet each other 3 days before a game, 3 days before the season starts. And you have a fresh-faced Bengali who can barely, speak a word of English, who's in his first year there, meeting somebody like a legend like a Ricky Ponting, or meeting somebody like a Jacques Kallis. And how do you get these two to talk? How do you get these two together? And so it was a nightmare for us when we thought about it and said, how do we make a cohesive force out of these people in 2-3 days? And the truth is, we didn't have to do anything. What happened was that the moment we would do that, we'd put them in the same room, put them in the dressing room, leave a bat out there. And Ricky Ponting would go up, pick a bat, do like this, okay? wait, and they'd be talking monosyllables, 110, 311, these are completely technical terms. Yeah, hook, good. And suddenly there's this language which is half gestures, half with the bat. You cannot know what's going on, but they are like thick as thieves. And I can tell you that at least two of them, Lakshmi Ratan Shukla and Ricky Ponting, 10 years after that, 8 years after those days, still communicate with each other. Of course, Lakshmi Ratan's English has not improved very much. He still writes mostly in emojis, but they're still together. Because sport, or especially excellence in sport, is a huge connector. It makes bridges where no bridges exist before. So far I've spoken about connectors in sport, bridges in games, bridges in the mind. Now I'm going to talk about the last part of what I really want to touch upon, which is boundaries and how they give us trouble. So one of the things I work for is that I am the project head for the FIFA Under-17 World Cup, which is happening in India this year. And one of the big challenges is that a tournament comes, a tournament happens, and it goes away, and nobody else is impacted. So our question to ourselves was, how can we actually make a difference out here? And then we started doing a survey of Indian sport, because we said, look, how much can we coach kids in a year? Even if we start coaching, what can we do in 1 year that can make a difference? And then we came to an answer which was very interesting, because we said, Europe has won 11 World Cups, and they have the fields, they have the technology, they have the money, fantastic. But hold on, South America has won 9 World Cups, and their stadiums are as shambolic as us, their facilities are terrible. All the players who have come up, the names, the Peles, the Ronaldinhos, they've not come up in plush academies, they've come up playing on the streets. So what clearly differentiates us from them is passion at the ground level. So we said, how can we make passion happen at the ground level? And we figured out that there were basically 3 boundaries to reaching those people. Kids will always want to play. The first thing we had was figuring out why they're not playing, okay? And they were not playing, enough kids were not playing for 2 to 3 basic reasons. One of it was that they do not think that they have the fields to play. There's not enough place to play. The second was that their schools didn't allow them to play. And the third was their parents didn't think it was a big idea. They thought, studies is a much better idea. So here is a situation where there are these 3 boundaries that you have to cross. So what we did was we decided, and with the government of India, we started working towards a completely different approach towards this. The first thing we said was, let's get to a situation where we actually tell them that you don't need 11 on 11 fields. And the truth is, 11 on 11 big style football is fantastic if your name happens to be Wayne Rooney or Cristiano Ronaldo. But if you're 12 years old or you're going to run that much, it's impossible. They run 11 to 12 kilometers. So what you really want to involve kids in a game, you have small fields, 5-on-5 games. And if you have one big soccer field, that same field that has 22 people can play 150 kids playing small 5-on-5 games, each of them involved, and all of them really having fun and being involved. Because, on 11 on 11 soccer, especially in the lower level, one guy kicks a ball, it goes out there, it comes back half an hour later because, kids just can't run that much. And this would seem to be an intuitive fact, but the truth of it is when we went out there and started working in India, we found out it's not the truth. People they didn't think that you need a big field. So the first thing we did was open your minds. You can play in a classroom, you can play on mud, you can play anywhere, and you don't need a big field to play. So that was the first win that we managed to do. The second win that we managed to do was say, how do we incentivize them? We used the government of India to incentivize schools. So we told schools, you know what? If you become a part of this program, do well, your kids do well, we'll feature your school on FIFA. Maybe a mascot will come to your school. There will be prizes and gifts for the school, and there are prizes, gifts, professional coaching classes for the PE teachers. So what we did was we started working on the ecosystem of sport rather than the child themselves. Because we knew that boys and girls, they always want to play. Give them an opportunity and they'll play. All we need to do is break these 3 boundaries in between. So that's what we've been doing for the last 1 year, and the results have been amazing. So I just want to show you some of the pictures that we did. So these are kids playing, as you can make out, this is a government school in Pali. They're playing literally in the sand, in the middle of nowhere, they're playing in the sand. And all we do is we give them footballs, we give them small areas, play, send us pictures, we feature you, we support you, and we give you technical help. And the results have been frankly amazing. So this is where kids thought they couldn't play because this was not a proper ground. The next example is kids themselves quickly making a field, and this is, they're not depending upon some Mali to do it, somebody to do it. They're just saying that, okay, let's put out these lines, make it, and start playing football. And this is where the revolution started. And then I'll take you to, this is a place, it's in a place called Begusarai, which is in Patna, close to Patna in Bihar. And they've never seen football. And yet, amazingly, football is the easiest, simplest game to play. And today we gave them footballs about a month back. One of the big incentives for a lot of girls who didn't come to school before was, if they come to school, they have a chance for half an hour of play every day. And if I have to end, I'll always end with what is my favorite slide. And this is a place called Presentation Convent in Goa. And the first barrier was, they said, can we play? Can girls play? And we said, girls, do you know that the Indian ladies ranking is 60 or 70 places ahead of the men's? They probably have a better chance of reaching a World Cup than us. Then they said, can we play on cement? I said, you have a badminton court, you can play out there. And then she says, can you play in skirts? And we said, not only can you play in skirts, you can play in habits. And this is the Mother Superior of Fatima of Presentation Convent kicking off the first ever football game in her school. It's been 3 months since that, and I'm told they play every day. And if there are any barriers that I'll be proud of breaking, I can't think of anything more than that. Thank you so much.